Welcome back, dreamers. Your host Ken here with some exciting news that I just couldn't wait to share. Somewhere in Dreamland now has an amazing new merch store filled with custom Somewhere in Dreamland hoodies, t-shirts, coffee mugs, pint glasses, and much, much more. So what are you waiting for? Why not hop on over to dreamlandpodcast.weebly.com and grab yourself or someone else some custom Dreamland gear now.
Danser avec moi. Du cordonnier, tu fêtes, qu'est-ce que t'as ton dans la tête, c'est que moi.
Welcome back, dreamers. Tonight, my guest is Philip Siracusa. Phil is the author of two best-selling books, The Horsefly Chronicles and The Curse of the Horsefly Chronicles. Both books document Phil's journey from heaven to hell and the gifts that he received from the other side, along with the true demonic haunting that surrounds him to this day. In an attempt to learn more, Phil has had some of the best and most recognized names in the paranormal at his house to help him with this troubling case. So without further ado, grab your blankets, turn down the lights, get comfy, and let's fade away into
Dreamland.
How you doing tonight, Phil?
Good. How are you?
Good. All right, man. Well, hey, I read your book, The Horsefly Chronicles. It was a really good book, man. It was very interesting. I took a lot from it. And I wanted to get you on my show because it's a pretty incredible story, and I feel that it's worthy of more people listening to it and reading it. And I wanted to talk with you a bit about it, man. So let's start there. Like, the book reads like an autobiography. Was that your point there?
That was my point, is to get it out there that spiritual attachments are real. My surplus memories, whether people believe or don't believe, there is a place called heaven. And that's where the book actually goes back and starts. And I remember that. And there's also a place of darkness. And again, it's hard to prove in the reality of physical world, because until you experience it or until you get there, it's hard to digest. But these realms do exist. And that's where my story begins. And demons, just as much as angels, are here as well in the physical realms. And we go a lifetime, we're not seeing anything. And that some people may not be as fortunate where demons do play a big part into their lives.
All right. Let's go back from the beginning. So in the beginning, first of all, you remember being born and you remember your journey through that whole thing, do you not?
Yeah, so before this lifetime, through adolescence, I always had these flashbacks, and I still have them, and I'm 54 years old. And the flashbacks are, I was at a campfire in a past life with 3 other people, and to the left of us was an explosion that came, and a bright light, and we all died. It must have been some kind of bomb. And I remember being pulled into a place of harmony and peace. I believe I was pulled into a brighter, more lovely, incredible place called what I would call home. We call it heaven as well. And that place does exist. And from that point, I remember this angelic being. Now, there's no time in that realm between heaven or hell. Time does not exist. Time is linear. So I was pulled into this darkness at one point, and that's when I described hell. It was like the inside of a volcano. But the angel knew from heaven. It's kind of weird because people ask me, well, that doesn't even make sense. How could a person have these memories going from heaven to hell? That's not even heard of. It's odd. But then the more I got into the field of paranormal and supernatural, I've also interviewed people who had a similar experience, and I found that to be very interesting. Hell is real. Now, demons, one thing I'm going to say about demons is that Satan knows our fears, and the demon looks like our fears. That's how they would represent and torture us and torment us into a place that words can't describe, the pure hate, pain. It's more than you'd feel in the physical realms of pain. You're tortured. Your soul is tortured. But I had restored faith at one point because I started to see that some of what we were called slaves, in essence, in the English language, some of them weren't there anymore. And it started to slowly, as I'm taking all the pain and torture, bring my faith in. And I kept saying through my consciousness and the spiritual part, save me, save me. And I seen a light from miles and miles away. That's what it looked like from the inside of this volcano. Very small pinhole of light slowly started to consume me and take me into the light where I felt no more pain. And I felt like I was taking back who I was. And then I was born September 16, 1967 in Staten Island University Hospital. Opened my eyes and there I was. And then through adolescence, growing up in New York, 3, 4, 5 years old, I would always have these flashbacks, but not understanding it because back in the 60s, early 70s, it's hard to decipher what you're actually going through. Is it something that your parents talked about, or is it something that actually happened in a past life? So getting older, 9, 10, 11 years old, I started, these flashbacks were becoming stronger. And I started to realize, wait a second, this is real. This did happen to me. These realms, these places did exist. And again, I had nobody to talk to because you had to explain that, and trying to explain it, the parents would be like, well, it's a nightmare. You had a nightmare, that's all it is. So, but what also did happen when I was being pulled away from this darkness of hell, I did remember this one point as if I was not supposed to escape this place. And dark entities, these shadows, these dark shadows followed me. It wasn't up until 13 years old, my parents' home in Staten Island, where I started to hear voices that came from nowhere. And from that point on, because I was like a lighthouse, these entities knew there's a communication there, and they can attach themselves to me in the physical realm. And it's in a way that not only can they affect the dream state, but they could put me into a state of sleep paralysis where I'm trying to fight to get out of the dream state. I can see, but I can't move. My body's immobilized. It's hard to even breathe. And that would happen during these points of night tremors. Now, the difference between a night tremor and a nightmare is that the night tremor, you would wake up and still see these demonic looking figures right in front of you with your own eyes. So now they're out of the dream state. And again, going through this at such a young age when no one talked about it, I also was confused at points. But I will tell the listener this: demons, unfortunately, do roam the earth. And whether we choose to believe or not believe, sometimes I say not believing just may be more better for the soul, that we try not to dig too deep, because once these things know that you believe and you have an intent to believe, they can attach themselves in a way like they did to myself, and they can torment in different ways. Not the ways that we would think of torment, in ways where they can make you take the wrong turns in life. So if you're supposed to go on a straight path of prosperity and peace, and everything's going good, they can make you take a left turn into chaos, crime, illegal things, where you start to fall into a trap, and they're capable of that. I'm not saying that every case where people are corrupt and crimes are taking place, demons are at play. But in my case, that is the truth, that these demonic beings can steer you in their direction because they're way ahead of us. We have a short lifespan in the physical world. If you're lucky, you make it till in your 90s, if you're lucky. That's nothing. That's a fragment of time, where they've been around for tens of thousands and thousands of years. So they already know what you plan on doing before you do it. So it's as if they throw out the fishing line and reel you into their realm of destruction, of pain, of torture, in ways where you may put it on other people, and you may do things that you look down the road and say, why'd I do that to that person? And then you start to realize, wait a second, it goes back in time with the shadows, with the voices. So there's a delicate line there that once it's crossed and there's enough intent between us, they can attach themselves in a very, very demonic way.
It's kind of not only your story. This could be true for everybody. Like, it could be really true for everybody. And as far as your trials and you're going to heaven and hell and back again, do you think that everybody goes through that in a sense once they pass?
That's a hard question. That's a very hard question. I think that the people that go to hell of such torment and pain are the people who, in a past life, have done something very, very, very evil, to see what that's about and have them be affected in a way. You know, going through life now, I'm the messenger. That's what I am. I teach people that these things are real and that you have to be careful. Don't shrug it off as you're going to do what you want when you want, and you're going to get away with everything, because the truth is you can get away with stuff in the physical realm, but there's a price to pay on the other side. And that's a fact. I can't prove it, but it's real.
Now, when you came out of this, you kind of had like a spirit guide attached to you or something like that, didn't you?
I had a spirit guide attached to me. It's as if I was separated between good and evil. And I had a good my teenage years were good, but I found myself at one point getting involved with what's following me. So I went to New York City and purchased a Ouija board. And that was probably the biggest mistake that I've made. But again, I was being steered into that direction. And once I did that, it opened up a can of worms, where the door that was a crack open from the evil side was now wide open, because they knew. Now, Ouija board is nothing more than, depends what you buy, it's cardboard or wood. It's not the actual board that's cursed or that can do these things. It's the intent that you have, and the spirit or entity knows what that is. They know the Ouija board. They know that tool that we use for communication. So once we do that, and we put our fingers on the planchette, there's the communication. And sometimes the entity can actually go into us and affect us, not where we're possessed, but where we're oppressed, where we're feeling the energy from the other side. Sort of people that are mediums and automatic writers that get the messages from the other side. A Ouija board is very similar. And if you're not protected in certain ways, it can destroy you.
All right. Now, you did fight quite a bit in the book with good and evil throughout your life. I know that you, like you said, you had a pretty good upbringing. Your teenage years were great, and then you kind of stumbled, right?
Yes. So in my early 20s, I had gotten a job as a bouncer at a bar that was owned by organized crime. I just wanted the money. There was good money they were paying. But what I didn't know was I was getting into that world at that point. Because if you work for organized crime under any of the restaurants or businesses, then they know everything about you and they expect things back from you. And when they know everything about you, one of the things they knew is that I knew I was able to, at a conversation, I told them, look, I can't communicate with the other side. I can't prove it. But I know I'm talking to some things on that side. And it just so happened that I was getting pulled right into the mafia in a sense where I was doing things for them and bad things. Some of the things I won't even say on the air, but one of the things that stuck out into my mind, and this is back in the early 90s, was that someone went missing. They had to find them because this person killed an FBI officer who was from another family. And they called me out on it. Says, let's meet at your place and see if we can do the Ouija board, see if you can find this guy. And I will say this, as funny or silly as it seems, these made men that were there at that time, and I was nervous because I'm doing the board with one of their sons. They were starting to believe what was happening. But not only that, different people who were killed by them, whacked, were coming through and threatening them.
Oh, wow.
Take your hands off the plaquette because if it's you, you got a problem. Take my hands off. And the son was doing it. The mafia's guy's son, one of them, and it's still communicating, and they're giving out names. And they said, we're going to come after you. Well, you'll see, like, the spirit's actually threatening them. But then one spirit did come through and tell them where this man that was hiding out. And the information was correct. And a week later, he was machine gunned down in Brooklyn.
Wow.
You see, I say that story for a reason. Because the other side is way more intelligent. I'm not talking about demons. I'm also talking about the crossover and existence of us. Some of them are earthbound. These were earthbound spirits. So I guess not only were they killed, but they killed as well. And because they were earthbound, they were able to give information just the way I'm talking to you through different devices. Sometimes we hear it on spirit boxes or recorders and EVPs. It's very similar, but they came through strong that night. And they gave the guy the information and they found him. And like I said, they killed him. But, and unfortunately, I couldn't break away from these people at that time because now I was a tool, an asset to them. And so the story goes on. So we have to be very careful what we choose. We say, well, I wish for this and I wish for that and I wish I could. We have to be careful with those words sometimes because the other side does listen and know. And just because you don't see it, hear it, or believe it doesn't mean that nothing's going to happen to you because there's no time on that side. So at any point, they can come after you for payback.
All right. I want to go back for a minute to your experience in heaven and hell. What you told us a little bit about what hell was like. It was like being the inside of a volcano. What was heaven like?
In 1981, just to like be in the middle of both of these, in 1981, I was at a dentist office and I was getting a routine check, and they gave me sweet air because I guess they found the cavity or whatever it was, and I was still feeling the pain, and they gave me more sweet air, and I died. And I felt myself leaving my body, not knowing that I was gone. And I'm at the top of the dentist office. I'm looking at my mom. She was there, and the dentist and the assistant. And I'm trying to talk to them, but I can't because they can't hear me. And I was pulled right through the ceiling, up into the sky, into this tunnel. It's as if a tunnel opened up from nowhere, a tunnel of energy, huge tunnel. And I was sucked in like a vacuum cleaner hose. It was very, very fast. And then when I came to the other side, does heaven exist? Is it real? I can give you simple words that wouldn't even come close to what heaven is like. But I'll give you some words. Bliss, euphoric. It's the true essence of us, 1,000,000%. This in the physical realm is not us. This is the shell that we're in because we've chosen this. But the other side is beyond perfection. And one of the things I do remember about heaven that clearly sticks out is the garden. The garden is perfect. Every blade of grass is perfect. Not only is it perfect and perfectly cut, but you can feel the vibrations from it, the love from it. You can feel everything around you is connected as one. Every tree, every flower, every rose, everything is beyond perfection. And again, these are simple words, and you no longer think of this realm. That's over. That was over for me. I'm home again. And you feel that in the vibration of your soul. I'm back home. And you start to see people from past lives. And they're all homes, similar, but you see, because it's perfection, it's a different landscape. It's a landscape of not only beautiful, but it's what the soul built. It's what the soul wants that dwelling to look like. That's how I can explain it. It's not a builder in the physical realm, what the builder wants a home to look like. It's what the soul planned and wanted it to look like. So, and again, I had the opportunity. I never met my grandfather, and I seen him in heaven, and he looked really good. He looked like he was in his 60s, but really good. And he goes, "Hello, Sonny." And I said, "Grandpa." And again, I never met him. And I felt that inside of me.
It was just like a knowing.
A knowing. My grandma, who died earlier that year, she looked at me and she wasn't happy to see me. And I says, "Grandma," and she pointed her finger and says, "Go back now." And I was pulled back into this tunnel, going very fast. The tunnel, so people know, the tunnel is dark and long and very, very windy. And it feels like the soul is going thousands of miles an hour backwards now. And it's scary because at one point going back, I felt like I didn't want to go back. I wanted to be with my grandparents in heaven because it was beautiful. And I stopped in the tunnel. But when I stopped in the tunnel, it's as if you're lost in an outer space where no one's ever going to find you because you never existed. It's the feeling of null, void, and emptiness. That is a scary feeling. I remember that. And my intent through the consciousness was, I want to go back and go back and go back. And I was pulling myself through vibrational energy back to those, to that opening of heaven. And I made it back with the will of me. And then I was pulled straight backwards again. And then I opened my eyes and I wound up in a hospital. We don't have choice on the other side. If the spirit fails, a loved one fails, and whoever it is, they feel like you have not completed your journey in the physical realm. You haven't completed. And no matter what it is, if you were in a car accident, a plane crash, or you're half burnt by fire, these are things we don't want to come back to, because we're talking about perfection and no pain, to having to deal with the pain. But these are life lessons that, from what I can teach people, that we've chosen before we're born into the physical realm. We've chosen this for our soul to grow, in essence. And, I still question myself and others, why, if we have the knowledge and the wisdom and the pureness at heaven, why would we have to go through any more? That's still a big question mark I have for myself. I don't even have an answer for that. I don't know if I'll ever have an answer. But that was an experience that plays into my life of, I help people know that there is another side. This is not it. And I'm not a person who is preaching religion. I'm not an atheist. I don't worship the devil. I'm a realist. And a realist is a person who wants to experience things just the way it is. And if it happens, it happens. It doesn't. These other realms do exist. And that's as plain and simple as I can tell. And on this side, these are lessons that we go through. And unfortunately, sometimes things that happened in my life and other people as well around the world are true, and they do exist until the day maybe that we cross over.
One of the questions I had for you, I guess, is why you? Why were you able to experience both heaven and hell? But I think you answered it there. I think that you answered it because I think that the reason why is because you are here to educate people on this and let people know how it is. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Okay.
I talked to many people out of taking their own life. I teach people fight through it. And not only do I want you to fight through the dark days, because we all have dark days. We all have days where it's like, is it worth it anymore? And that's the devil playing tricks on the mind. Go forward, be the best you can be. And sometimes it's impossible. We feel like you don't want to complete the journey, but complete the journey. And I promise you that when I had my near-death experience, it's like a puzzle of my soul was complete on this side. It was complete to a point where I understand it now. And I guess when I was pulled back, more has to go on. The puzzle is added to. And I think that now, going through what I'm going through and helping other families and people is teaching them, keep pushing forward. Yes, there is a darkness, and yes, there is light. The light always comes over the darkness, but you have to go forward. Don't try to take your life and end it because you can't deal with it. And again, there are cases where people, they're going through so much that maybe their whole family's on the other side. They just don't feel a reason to exist anymore. But I can tell you that if you're in the physical realm, then you do have a reason, because you were put here for a reason, because you've chosen the reason. And you won't see that till you cross back over.
Yeah, that's deep, man. That's pretty deep. So if you hadn't had the experiences that you've had, do you think that you wouldn't have wised up and maybe you would have sunk deeper into a life of crime?
I had to go through those experiences to learn and to rebuild myself. You know, again, from heaven to hell, good and evil, you're being separated. And then in the physical realm, you're being separated. What kind of path am I going to take? The college kid, the corporate guy, or the organized crime. And sometimes when you're pulled into a different realm because you've already opened the door through a Ouija board prior and you've communicated with the other side on a continuous basis, I was doing that every couple of days, they can pull you in and steer you into that wrong direction. So in essence, if I didn't have these experiences and go through all these trials and tribulations, then I wouldn't be able to help other families. Helping other families means more to me than me. And the people that were at the end and they sent me an email, I don't want to go on anymore, I don't want to live anymore, I'm done. And I talked to him about my haunting and my family and what I've been through and my near-death experience. And well, you should continue to go on. And it helped them. And it feels good helping other people because there's a lot of darkness in these realms.
Yeah. I would agree because I've seen my fair share. You know, there's some crazy things out there and everything's pulling you every which way. And I think you nailed it with what you said there. So is this still ongoing for you? These hauntings, the experiences, are you still having them to this day?
Yes. So we live in a haunted house in Eastern Pennsylvania. It's called the Horsefly Chronicles home. The home has been investigated by over 52 paranormal teams around the world, psychics, mediums, remote viewers. We've also tried to remove some of these entities. We've had priests here, Wiccan, shaman, reverend, deacon. And sometimes things just backfire. So it's hard to say that you can live with a haunting. And this is not a poltergeist. So my pictures don't fly off the wall or my walls don't bleed, none of that stuff. What the most evil things can do, demonic beings. And again, they're few and far between. But what they do is they control or try to manipulate our minds in a way where they make you agitated, aggravated. They bring on the worst memories as if your brain is a file cabinet and they're going through to pick your worst times in life. And they keep replaying that over and over again into our minds. They try to wear you down, break you, isolate you from the world, and have people not want to be with you and near you. And they do that to the family as well. These hauntings, my home and other homes, notoriously around the world, this does happen. I mean, it wasn't up until a couple of years ago we had NESPR come here. NESPR is part of the Warren legacy. They're branched off of Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they're the people who did the Amityville home, The Conjuring, Annabelle. And I wanted to hear because they are the people, right? They're the best out there. They've had the experience. And I want to know what I'm dealing with. Is it psychosomatic? Is it power of thought? Is it the friendly ghost that's trying to be evil? Or is it what we think it is? A demon, plain and simple. And they spent an entire Saturday here up until the recording was played back and you hear what you hear. It won't be out to the public. It's their private information and their library. You do hear a demonic being, and they do know the name of this thing. And this thing always played the character of a young girl that we gave the name Sarah to in the home. Sarah, we thought, was an innocent girl, about 11, 12 years old, white complexion, high cheekbones, dark hair, that was murdered in Staten Island, New York. She would tell us this through psychics and mediums on the Ouija board or through other devices. And she told us what school she went to, and she was right about everything. In fact, she was so correct that she gave us information on things we didn't know to help us. And I asked them when they came here, Dan Rivera, who's part of this legacy, I asked them, well, because they're trying to build our trust. It's the only way they can come into our lives. Because if you're going to see evil for what it is, you're going to try to have it removed right away. But if they play as an innocent child, sort of like the Sally House, things to that nature, where they'll play like, I'm a little kid, help me. And they'll give you information and it'll be validated information, but they're just pulling you in their direction until you really can lift the veil and then see who they really are. And I will tell you that I was creeped out when I played that recording. That frightened me. That particular entity, after they blessed my home, I believe is gone for the last 2 years because there's no signature of it. It had a certain pattern of things it would do in the home. However, other things do remain, and whether they are good or evil is also a question mark. I think that some of these things are still malevolent. We've had true ghost stories here back in October. That episode should be coming out soon. I wanted to see, because we still have things going on, voices and whispers and things to that nature. And they did discover there's other things here. And I guess you'll see it when it comes out. What is it? Who is it? We don't know, but it is something.
I think it's really interesting that you say this ghost played the part of a little girl, played the part of a ghost. I actually, a good friend of mine and someone who I speak to quite a bit, was part of the Warren legacy, Ralph Sarchi. And I had him on my show. We communicate back and forth. Great guy. He was talking about how, he had a case actually where a ghost friended these women that moved into this house, and then it pretty much spiraled out of control after it gained their trust and turned out to be a demon. And it was a really creepy story, but you kind of just said that same exact thing, and I find that very interesting.
That's how they reel you into, their innocence, but they're not innocent. They're pure evil, and they can destroy. And people ask me, can a ghost actually harm you physically? Very few cases, but it can. It can. What do demons mostly do? They'll affect the mind. They'll make you think you're worthless, useless. You'll have no future. Everything will just turn to nothing for you. That's what they'll do to you. They'll drain your energy, make you feel like you don't want to wake up and go to work or take care of your family. They know how to do that very, very well. They also know how to manipulate electronics, cell phones, computers, radios, cars. When paranormal investigations are going on, how we hear about the stories of the batteries going dead in their recorders. Well, what do you think they're doing to us if they live with us? They stay in our realm. They're draining us as well. And when they drain us, then there's a lot of sickness, unfortunately, in paranormal, and a lot of death. I've been doing interviews and interviewing for years, and a lot of people aren't around anymore. Now, look, there's natural causes, but I also know from living in a haunted house that sometimes, and it could be exciting, like, I want to investigate a haunted house. I want to see something or hear something. You have to be careful because you don't know what you're dealing with. You just don't know. Cases, again, like the Amityville Horror. Ron DeFeo kills his whole family. He had a weakness, and the weakness was alcohol, drugs. He had a father that had money, and the father was, once again, involved with organized crime. He had the car place. You see, evil knows how to find our weakest links in the physical realm. So it knows, wait a second, this person has an alcohol addiction. Let's get him. This person has a drug addiction. Let's get him that way. This person has a bad temper. Let's get him this way. That's what they can do. They will find that pinhole. They will open it up, and they will destroy. And they will make you destroy other people, because acts of evil are destroy everything and everybody in different ways and hurt people. That's what it wants. It's not peace and harmony in the physical realm of do good things. They want you to do these things because they can't carry out these acts they make us do it to each other. And that also, it's not just haunted homes. You see, possession is real, oppression is real. And I want to put this out there very delicately. So if a person can become possessed and try to kill other people or kill other people, but what do you think world leaders can do as well? That big question mark. Is it possible that evil can affect them as well to make them destroy other countries? Throughout time and history, if we look at history going way back, why would all these acts be carried out? Again, natural causes of wanting to do things to overtake and be powerful, but power is greed. Greed comes down to one of the stems of the pure evilness of a demonic being, because that's what it does. That's what it wants. It wants everything. It wants to control and isolate and take, and money is power. So it knows how to control us in the physical realm as well. And I'm not saying money's not good, because we all want money. But we have to be very, very careful, because there's a lot of downfall too to the rise, and the wish sometimes becomes unfortunate, where you hear these horror stories, pop culture figures become icons overnight, but their demise comes very quickly as well, in their 20s and their 30s, and we ask why? There's a delicate line there, so we have to be careful on the trends. I believe in balance. I don't believe in going all in, because none of us in the physical realm can overrule that. Evil can find us, our weakest link, and take us down various ways, through money, through power, through greed, through hatred, pain, and any kind of addiction, and make you destroy others.
So we've established that demons are real. What about angels? Are there angels out there?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
And what role do they play? I mean, what do they do for us?
I had an encounter after my near-death experience in 19, and I questioned, did I really, what did I go through? Because I was telling my parents and friends what happened to me, but it felt like you were just into this different state of mind. Maybe the medication affected you in a way where you thought you were, you were hallucinating, but I couldn't breathe. And it's hard to explain that when you're going through it. And if it wasn't for medications, I wouldn't be here today, going through that experience. But this is what did happen. And yes, to the listener, angels are real. A week later, in my backyard, my parents' home, I asked for a sign that I was really in heaven. I asked through my mind. I was asking, now when people ask me also, did you see God when you crossed over? No, I didn't see God. Did you see any of the angels or Jesus? I didn't see Jesus, but I seen an angel. And I'm going to get to that in the physical realm. But what I did see is the bright light. And the light is everything. The light is all, because the light is God. Light is everything on the other side. It is, you don't have to see the physical being of a creator, because the light is the creator. Period. A week later, after I asked God in the physical realm to give me a sign, my mom took my family, it was a beautiful summer day, for a walk down the street. And when I was walking, this angelic being that I did see in one part of heaven that I didn't go through, because I don't have a 3-hour show, but she was on the right side of me in the physical realm. She had long blonde hair, very crystal, angelic blue eyes, like mystical blue eyes. She was like a mirror image of age. So she was around 14, 15, and I seen her. She had on a shirt with these beautiful flowers, regular jeans. The shirt stood out, and she had a smile and vibrant. Mom, can you see her? And to my brothers and sisters, but they were all looking at me like, who are you talking to? But my older sister, as I spoke about on a near-death experience show, did see her.
Wow.
And she's talking to her, and I'm listening, but it's not audible. It's through the mind talking somehow. So my sister's speaking, but the angelic being speaking through the mind, and my sister knows her. And what this angelic being gave me was a feeling of heaven again. Like this is God answering a prayer to prove that I was there on that side. And she was happy. And one of the things she said through a mental telepathy, it wasn't through the vocal. She goes to me, "Don't worry, silly. I'll be waiting when you come back." And that she's gone. And I was looking for her. My older sister's looking for her. And trying to explain that to people is very, very difficult. But angels do exist. In our weakest times, in our darkest hours, we have to open up to a level of trust and belief that the other side does exist. And if you don't believe, open yourself up, give yourself a chance to understand that these angelic beings are real. And I believe that also that, again, this is one of the things that gets me through this physical realm. My life isn't perfect. I live a haunted life. Okay, period. It's haunted. It's tainted. It's stigmatized, my home. What gets me through everything and how I can help other people is that knowing that the other side of heaven, our real home, period, does exist. There is a real home for us. And it's home. When you get there, you'll see what I'm talking about. But live this journey first. But it does exist. And that's what gets me through this. Because every time I go through all these problems in my home, something breaking down, or especially if they're paranormal investigation, things happen because we triggered off one of these entities. I think about that side and knowing that, okay, this is the short journey. One person who died and came back in a near-death experience study said that the only difference is that it's like being at a stop sign with a car and then you go again. That's how quick, and he was correct, that's how quick this journey is. We feel like it's so long sometimes, and it goes on, and it's not. It's not even a fragment of time. It's a grain of sand in the beach. That's all it is. It's just that something we've chosen to go through because we wanted to go through this course for our soul's journey. But you're gonna, when you do cross over, there are extended families, I call them, that are part of us, people that we've known through the past lifetimes. I also am a firm believer in deja vu, where we felt like we've been somewhere and we really can't put our finger on it and how we've been there. Well, known as a paranormal investigator now and going where I'm going through, that parallel to this universe, and could it be possible that we were once at a place that we thought we were, but we really can understand that we probably were there through a different form of consciousness. And that's why it brings back that memory. And, you know, if you ever have a smell, like you ever smell something, you're like, wait a second, like it smells the sense, I like it, but I don't know where it's from because I don't remember smelling it at any time that I've been here. But where did it come from? Or where did this feeling come from when you work, you know, you go to certain locations and maybe you feel something that you never felt before. It's like you're walking through a vibrational tunnel of energy that you did once before. These realms do exist. We do go on. And life can be tough, especially in a haunted house.
Yeah, for sure. So let me ask you, you said you're not a religious person. However, a lot of the things you say kind of go hand in hand with certain religions. Did your experiences change your outlook on religion, or how did that work for you?
Because I had these experiences, and then because I know that there's another side that's perfect, it brings in the feeling of we always were, we always will be. We didn't have a beginning. We didn't. We're energy. Energy is not created nor destroyed. We didn't have a beginning. We don't have an end. In the physical realm, the body decays, but the body's a shell. That's all it is. We go on. We always go on. We've always been. So when I look at Catholic religion, when I did go to Catholic school growing up, and I look at all different types of religion, and knowing what I know through living in a haunted house and having a near-death experience, seeing an angel, I don't put it into any category of religion. I just feel like these other beings do exist. The angels do exist. And I don't put them into a religion. I put them into, it always was. It always is. And when we are in doubt and in our worst fears, a lot of people pray to Buddha. People pray to the elephant god. People pray to God. People pray to all different monuments and symbols that they believe in. Believe in the true essence of yourself, of your soul, and find that, and that's who you really are. And I don't buy into, sorry, I mean, I'm not going to disrespect anyone's religion, of course, but the way religion is written, and I did go to Catholic school, and my experiences don't correlate. Some of the things do, but some of it just doesn't make sense. So I don't fall into any of that. I just don't. And again, not fall into like you shouldn't be doing it. No, whatever you believe in, do. I'm saying that for me, what's gotten me through my journey is God gave me a taste of, let me show you this side. Now, I say God goes back to a religion, but I don't follow that religion because when I explain that God is the light is everything. There's a word there. Well, who is God? What is God? You know, one of the studies that were done, it's actually on YouTube. All these scientists and doctors and psychiatrists were put together, and they said, well, who is God? And then they came up with a conclusion that God does not exist because he does exist. And it's like, wait a second, what does that mean?
Yeah.
It means that when you don't, it's like nothing goes to something. It's beyond our scope. You see, here's the best way I could describe this to people. When we're in the physical realm, we're boxed in to what we conceive and believe in our reality of what we see, we only have four corners. When I died, I was out of that box. And you see everything for the way, not only through the mind's eye, but you see everything for the way it really is, the whole scope of everything. You understand everything. So we limit God, Christian church, Catholic church, Buddha. We limit these things. On the other side, it's not limited. It just is because it always was. And again, it's hard to grasp that in these words. It's really hard to. But that's the only way I can really describe it is that there's so much more. It's as if Sylvia Brown said it the best one time. She said that we're inside of a balloon in the physical realm. When we cross over, we're on the outside of the balloon. Now you see everything for the way it is. And that is the best way to describe it.
I mean, I guess that makes sense. Basically, you're saying you're not limited to an ideal or a symbol or anything like that. It's just the only way that we can explain it here. So,
yes.
Yeah, I get it. I get what you're saying.
Based on that, but that's the best way I could describe it through experience and through my belief. I don't tell anybody what they should believe, but I will tell you that believe the other side because it does exist.
So I'm going to throw you a curveball. How do aliens fit into your thought process? Do you believe in them? What role do they play if you do?
Aliens are real. Aliens are real. When I talk about that other side, I also feel that these things are interdimensional beings. You know, a lot of the paranormal investigations I've done or having people come to my own home, there's a difference between ghosts and these shadow figures, the shadow people. There's another intelligence out there that far exceeds any of our capabilities with the physical realms. They are real, they do exist, and it's hard to prove. But then again, about a year ago, it was on the news that look at these crafts. You know, we can't explain it, right? Some people say demons. They're not demons. Demons do not build spacecrafts. They're not angels. Angels don't build spacecrafts. These are other beings. They do exist. Will we ever have a one-on-one encounter? I believe some of us. I believe the abductions that did happen, a lot of them going way back, especially Roswell, with that whole incident, and going forward and Project Blue Book. I think that there's truth to that, especially with fiber optics and the technology. Look how far we've become.
Yeah.
And the cell phone, who would even think about a cell phone in the early 80s? And now look at the cell phone can do. And it's so small too. So it's amazing the technology advancement that we've come up with in such a short frame of time. And I'll go back to this. When people ask me, do aliens exist? I would say 1000% they do. How can I prove it? Look at the pyramids. Plain and simple. We can't do that today.
Agreed.
Formula, anybody tries to conclude that we can rebuild these pyramids, you're wrong. We cannot build the pyramids. In fact, they said at the bottom, if it was a half an inch off or a quarter of an inch off, up on top wouldn't be a perfect angle the way it was designed. We can, and to the North Star, the Great Pyramid, we can't do that. So therefore, the Egyptians, well advanced. Again, I don't know much about that whole thing, but from what I understand and see, definitely.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, even to your point with the pyramids, I mean, you've got ancient Egypt with the pyramids, and then you have Mexico with pyramids. There's pyramids on every single continent, and they didn't have contact like that back then that we know of anyway. So it's pretty incredible to think about. I'd have to agree with you on that. So was there a second book that you wrote?
I wrote a book because when I came out with my first book, I got a lot of criticism of people that don't believe in ghosts or my experience. And I says, you know, to my wife, I says, you know, we're living in a haunted house. I came out with a book to try to explain my surplus memories of heaven and hell and haunting, but I'm getting a lot of negative feedback. So why don't we do this? Why don't we have some real good paranormal investigators come to our home and they'll document word for word, and we'll put it in a book what they say, not what I say, what they experienced here before coming to my home, during and after. And that's called The Curse of the Horsefly Chronicles. And in the book, there's some people out there that are recognized in the paranormal community that have been here, that have been on TV. And they'll tell you in the book, word for word, what they've experienced. I didn't want people to listen to me anymore. What do they got to say? Is it real? Is the Horsefly Chronicles home a real haunting? And you read the book and you see what they say. You know, it's real. I had to prove it. You know, people ask me, well, why did you have 52 paranormal teams come to your home? Isn't that ridiculous? It is ridiculous. I was trying to prove a point to the world that paranormal phenomenon does exist. It's real. It's not fake. It's not make-believe. It's not an illusion. It's not hocus pocus. It's real. And I had to prove that, I felt, to everybody. And I did a really good job of proving that, look, this is real. This energy, it does flow through the air, whether it's negative or positive. And not only that, but some of these things can manifest into, you may see an orb. A lot of orbs are dust particles, water vapors, but there are authentic orbs. And then you may get an authentic pitch of a full body apparition. We caught one on our top banister, a young boy, it looked like. But it wasn't a young boy, of course. Something else that can shape shift. And I had to prove that. And I had to prove it to myself as well, what we're dealing with here. And I could tell you that, and a lot of the equipment out there, to be honest with you, I don't buy into, like K2 and REM pods. I've experienced with it. It's nice to have. It's a fun tool, but your cable TV remote, if your neighbor's changing it, there's a chance that it can make that K2 meter go off. And it sounds so stupid, but we've tested a lot of theories. The perfect way to say, hey, this is real, a digital recorder, plain and simple. EMF detectors and all that. There's so many waves going through the air, CBs and televisions. It doesn't have to be in your house. It could be in the neighbor's house, right? Or it could be a tower, a radio tower, or an airport tower that's sending off signals, and all of a sudden all went off. You're buying into your own stuff. It's not going off because you're thinking a ghost is making it go off. And again, there are authentic cases where maybe it does happen a few times. But if you have a digital recorder and no one else is around and you're getting a response, well, you got company, period. You don't need to spend tens of thousands of dollars on stuff for what? For what? If it's a digital recorder, you're hearing a voice, respond to your voice. And I'm not talking about a spirit box, because I really don't believe that either. Because a spirit box is scanning through so many stations. Sometimes it's like, is it a coincidence? Come on, it's just saying things I want to hear. I've heard my name on a spirit box, and I said, well, is it really saying Phil because I'm asking it what's my name? If it's real, then it could do it on a digital recorder as well. Right?
Yeah, I agree.
They say, no, it's a digital recorder. I'm not going to do it. No. That's not the way this works. Back in the day when the Warrens did the investigations on these cases like Amityville, Conjuring, basic equipment, very basic. The recorder is the number one tool. It's inexpensive. It's the truth. It's realism. And you can't really debunk that.
Since the very invention of the ability to record, they were trying to get voices from the other side. So, and being successful. So that's actually what the recorder was originally designed for. I don't think a lot of people know that, but that was the whole thought behind that at the beginning, and then it turned into, what we know as the recorder. It's pretty interesting, and I think a lot of serious investigators have the same thoughts about the equipment that you do. I think a lot of that stuff is just the TV type thing to you got to see the blinking lights and you got to do this. And, in an area where I live in, where we have every military base known to man, GPS doesn't even work down here 50% of the time because of all the radar and everything else that's going on. Of course, your EMF detector isn't going to work, If I can't get my GPS to work, pretty good chance that your EMF detector is going to be thrown off somehow, But I agree with you wholeheartedly on that, for sure.
Nice to look at, and you want to believe that some of these things are actually real. But I bought the strip lights, those lights that go on the wall, you stick them, and they have a little remote to change colors. Well, your cable TV remote sometimes changes the color on that.
Yep.
I debunked so many of these things that are out there because everything else is making them go off, and we're just buying into it. If I'm going to sleep with one eye open at night, I want to make sure it's real, period.
Yep.
The only way I know it's real, if it ain't physical contact, then it's going to be a recorder. Everything else, even some pictures, are optical illusions, and orbs are dust particles. There's just so many things that you can, if you want to rule it out, buy a recorder. If you hear someone talking on the other side, it's real, period.
You know what? I didn't ask a very important question. Why the Horsefly Chronicles? Why the Horsefly Chronicles?
At one point, and I didn't get into it because we don't have a long time span, but at one point when I was writing the book, I had help with coworkers from, I was working with in New Jersey. And ironically, sometimes a black horsefly would appear as we were talking about what was happening in my home and thinking about an idea of me telling the world about my haunting and coming out with a book. But what's more interesting is that they would call me and say, there's a horsefly in my house in the dead of winter. One person lived in New Jersey. One person lived in Westchester. One person lived in New York. And I says, well, it's either we're all crazy, it's an illusion, or this thing is listening to us. And that's where one of the people that were helping me says, you know what, Horsefly and Chronicles, because it's ongoing. And we came with the Horsefly Chronicles. The horsefly is a symbol. The fly is a symbol. Beelzebub. These are evil symbols that it lets you know. For example, it's around. It's watching everything you're doing. You can't fool it. You can't trick it. You can't hide from it, no matter who you talk to. And it's proven that. And that's also in the Curse of the Horsefly Chronicles, how people have had experiences dealing with this. And again, people say, was it a real fly? It's a real horsefly. You could squash it if you get it. But another one comes back. And not at that very moment. On that time frame of you go to work, there's a horsefly in the windshield. And again, I tried to rule out coincidence versus fact, because I thought a lot of it was coincidence. But in the dead of winter, in different states, and that we're all working on the same thing, that becomes more factual to me. I can't prove it, but it's a symbol, I think, that this entity is using, like, I'm watching every one of you.
I was wondering about that when I first picked your book up, and then I already knew the answer, of course, because I read the book and I kind of put two and two together. But I just wanted everybody out there to kind of to know themselves why.
Yes.
Well, hey, Phil, where can everybody find you if they need some advice, or they have something they want you to check out, or they just want to get at you? And where can they find your books? And
I'm going to leave my email address. If you're a family or a listener who's in need of help, and if I feel like I could assist you, and again, I don't want your money, nothing like that. If I feel like I can give you some valuable information, it's PSIRACUSA4 You could shoot me an email, or you could follow me on Facebook. I have a few pages, and you could check out also all the past investigations that have been at my home on YouTube. Just type in the Horsefly Chronicles, or even on Google. Everything's out there. Most of the stuff. Some of the stuff teams kept to themselves, but a lot of it's out there where you can see what was going on when these investigations were taking place. And the book, it's on Amazon. It's a good read. Sometimes it's a skeptical read up until you actually watch the videos on YouTube with the teams here. Then you say, okay, you start to see, like, these things do exist in the book.
I thought the book was a fantastic read. I enjoyed it. So I think that my audience will enjoy it too. So I would definitely recommend the Horsefly Chronicles book, because, like I said, I enjoyed it. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, hey, man, I'd like to have you back on, maybe talk a little bit more about your investigations and the things that are going on, and maybe get some more interest in that.
Oh, most definitely. And I appreciate coming on your show. I've listened to some of the episodes. I was really intrigued, so thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. All right, Phil, well, you have a good night, and thank you again for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Well, that about does it for Dreamland tonight, dreamers. Thanks again for listening, and good night.